Hi there, Glocal citizens. Welcome back to the podcast that inspires a borderless mindset around manifesting a new world. I am your host, Florence Adu, coming to you with part 2 of my conversation with Dr. Wesley Watkins. If you missed it, please do go back to part 1 of our conversation where we get an introduction to Dr. Wes and his Jazz and Democracy project, as well as how he ended up in the land down under. So before we get back into the conversation, I will talk a little bit about his bio, but I want to make sure that you go back to hear the full breadth of his experience as a fellow Stanford alum and an educator. He is the founder of the Jazz and Democracy Project, J&D, which is a music integrated curriculum that utilizes jazz as a metaphor to bring democracy to life, enrich the study and teaching of history, government, civics, and culture, and inspire youth to become active, positive contributors to their communities. So let's get back into our conversation about jazz and democracy.
What jazz teaches us is also like, what do you do when someone does the thing you would not do?
Right. Yes, that part. Mm-hmm.
So like, how do you respond when someone is just going off in the wrong direction or is in the wrong place? So like, I once did a residency on this topic and I asked musicians about this when I'm interviewing them. You know, it's like, again, like I said, what do you do when it all falls apart? But like, you know, sometimes you got to yell out on stage, which is wholly unprofessional. Like if you paid money to go to a jazz club or let alone a big concert hall to see a jazz man perform, and somebody's got to yell out, you know, B flat with their voice, it means someone got lost. You know, like that's a fail. That's a fail, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But when I interview musicians about this, they're like, listen, but I would rather fail in that perception to the audience than for the song to continue to go wrong. So you'll sacrifice the professionalism to save the music. So you could liken that to, you know, protest movements. You know, like, I mean, people who are protesting don't believe that they're wrong, but they are in some sense yelling out and saying, wait, we're going the wrong way. The risk in that situation is not so much looking good or looking bad, but it might be a risk to your personal safety or to your reputation because a lot of protesters get arrested. You know, I was very clear at various points of protest in my time where I was like, listen, man, I work in schools. I won't be allowed into schools if I, you know, go to, like I can't do that. You know what I mean? So it's like, I mean, I'm also just a scaredy cat in general. So, you know, I don't need no fire hoses, no police dogs, no riot gear, none of that for me. Thank you. But also, like, I cannot risk having this on my record and expect to continue to do what I do. So I got to pick my spots, you know? Mm-hmm. So anyway, I think maybe I'm a little bit off the point, but
I think you covered the nuance, right? And that's the idea is, you know, democracy may not be dead. It's really this dance that we still are trying to do something about. But I love how when you asked the one student and she said, well, that sounds like monarchy, kind of like oligarchy, right?
Oligarchy, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's good that there are tools that we can use so that folks actually recognize it and then they can put it in perspective from an early age.
Yeah.
And so I wonder in this work, because jazz is your thing, right? You love jazz. Moving in this global sphere, global, you know, world that we are in now, do you see, because I think democracy, as I said, is in peril in most places, how do you see potentially adapting or collaborating, and this is on that business model side of things, adapting or collaborating with other countries and other music genres to do something in other geographies?
Yeah, well, okay, 2 answers, and I'll try and keep this kind of focused here. Mm-hmm. Just for contrast. So 2 things. So like before I left the Bay Area, I recorded the parts of the teacher training that are vital to doing J&D live in a classroom that I could not teach the teachers I was training over Zoom when COVID hit. Mm-hmm. And that gave me the opportunity. That meant when I left town, we left a week later. So I got this in just another wire. I had a whole film crew just film all filmed me teaching a group of teachers how to do J&D in a classroom. I had a live band there. This is how I work with the live band. I use boom whackers. This is how I use boom whackers. This is exactly why and how I do this lesson. And I committed it all to video so that I could train teachers anywhere in the world. Because what had happened was I wanted to train teachers in 2020 and then COVID hit. And I said, listen, we were at that point of the year where we knew we're not coming back in the fall in person. So I was like, listen, we're not coming back in the fall. So, let's do the training over Zoom because that's how you're going to have to do this anyway. So we did a portion over Zoom that we could do. And I said, listen, as soon as we can get in the classroom, I'll give you the rest. And that moment didn't happen before I left town or until the week before, like it just didn't, long story short. So I said, what, I'm going to commit this to video because I know the training I did via Zoom plus these videos will enable the teacher to use J&D in their workplace, in their classroom, whatever. So there's making yourself nimble in that way or, malleable in that way, to amass the things. There's another thing I want to say about it. I've said this. I think I said this on Twitter once when I was on Twitter. And it's like, I really think every single musician, I mean, of course, I started thinking about this in terms of jazz. It doesn't matter. And it's nonpartisan. I feel like I was thinking about this in the American context, and maybe it's usable in other contexts too. Like in Australia, they have compulsory voting, so it wouldn't mean much here. I feel like let's just take the American context. Every single musician should organize with the voter registrar in the county where they're performing. And they should say, if you are not registered to vote, we have the forms at the back of the room when you leave. Like, I was just feeling like a jazz musician, because I'm working, with this jazz and democracy metaphor, you should say to your audiences, just like Terrence Blanchard said to me, listen, man, if you're on stage, you got to participate. You can't be on the stage and not blow a horn, play the piano, play drums, whatever your instrument is. If you're on stage, you got to participate. And the society is the stage. You're in it. You got to play. There's a lot of ways to play. Your work is play. Raising kids is play. Volunteering is play. Civic engagement is play. But certainly voting has to be part of the way that you contribute to your society. So I just feel like everywhere musicians should be like, register to vote after this show. I don't care if you're performing in a red county, if my politics are left, or if you're performing in the San Francisco Bay Area and my politics are right. You should vote in America.
Sure.
Damn it.
I don't disagree with you, but where I feel like the democracy has broken down is before we even get to the idea of being a voter, right? So that's yes. There's all those things in between. But to your point, yes, that is, I think we need more broadcast, I want to say model citizens to be able to move the dial in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like, music has such a potential for, moving people in a mass way. I mean, not everyone does. I mean, not everybody's selling out stadiums.
Right. But just generally being in music, in and with music.
I mean, it's a captive audience that's chosen to be there. So not captive in that way. But I'm saying you got a room full of people on some type of regular basis. Like, say the thing that would be part of, not the sum total of, but part of making this society better. We got to participate. This is just one way. And I'm not even saying you should be up there advocating for a particular politician. I'm just saying we should have more people getting other people to think about how they're contributing to society. Because the analogy that I use often in jazz is that the silence matters as much to the melody or to the groove as the sound does.
It does.
Right? The space in between, like if you think of any drum beat, you think about where the drum stick hits the drum. But as important to that groove and the way that you like how it feels is the space in between when that drumstick hits that drum head.
The silence,
right? And the silence matters so much. And so, we see that when people don't turn out so low voter turnout swings elections. You know what I mean? So there's that. But then, like you said, there's also just, like I said, you got to be a value add in every way, whether it's volunteering, whether it's donating, whether it's, just having people left over at the house and being just a person in the community that people like to be here. I mean, all these things seem small. And I feel like maybe I don't know. There's better experts on this,
Yeah.
but it's possible
But
that the social
yeah.
media world makes us think that we're more connected, but we're actually not doing the social things.
Exactly. That's I think that was the point. It's I was kind of getting at that it's really in communion with people because
Yeah.
that community is what really brings us together to be able to coalesce on what is right for us.
Yeah.
And so I want to ask you about Glocal speak, speaking of silences and things like that. So is there a word or phrase or a saying that you have found to be an integral part of your local experience? And now we can say it about Sydney, but just kind of maybe even within the sector in the space that you work in, what would you call your Glocal speak?
There's a lot of different, Australian
Yeah.
colloquialisms and sayings or whatever. I studied in England, so I know that crisps mean chips and chips means French fries, whatever, whatever. So
Yeah.
there's that type of stuff. I'm trying to think of what's a good Aussie one. I jokingly say crikey a lot.
Crikey?
Crikey, yeah.
What is crikey?
Crikey is kind of like oh snap, like that's that's the African American vernacular English translation of crikey.
Okay, so yeah, you use it in a sentence, please.
It would just be. It's like it's an exclamation. Like
Oh, okay.
if
Oh,
if
cracky.
you
Oh,
see a
crikey.
very large spider, as they have here, you might yell out "crikey!" like oh shit.
Okay. Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Got
There's
it.
there's that type of thing. But the thing that I probably say more than any is flat white, which is just a type of coffee that I wasn't familiar with
Oh,
in the
until
States. If I went to a coffee shop in the States, I might get a latte. A- and
right.
and you can get a latte here, and I don't know the exact difference between a latte and a flat white. It's something
Yeah.
to do with the ratio of milk to espresso, I think.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I say flat white all the time because
But
it's
that's your
my
local,
that's my
your
drink.
daily.
What's also funny to me though is that they call an americano a long black.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then they call a cappuccino a short black, or like just a shot.
Uh-huh.
They call it a
Uh-huh.
short black, which makes sense. But as a black person, it sounds weird to me.
That's what I was about to say.
Like a long black, like hold on a second, like this feels a little,
Yeah.
objectifying. But
Yeah.
coffee is a black drink before you add the milk, so like it's fine.
Right. 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 I mean, but so speaking of, how has that integration been? Because we know the long history of Australia.
Sure.
And so you being there as a Black family,
Yeah.
and you're teaching these different subjects around race and what is it like?
I'm not teaching about that. I guess I am at the. You're right.
Yeah.
Race, and rock at the USSC. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So there's definitely parallels. So just to directly answer your question, we've had very little issue with that, and that was part of the draw.
Okay. Got it.
Now,
Yeah.
I will say very clearly, because this matters to us.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about colorism,
Yes.
and we're all rather fair-skinned,
Mm.
and that
Mm-hmm.
counts in this world.
Yes.
I think this counts all over this planet
It does.
in different ways, different nuances, here or there, and there's other factors, surely. But the fact that we are not dark-skinned African Americans matters.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the sad truth of it.
Right.
So, like, I had a conversation with some people who were talking about they had come here and they're darker than we are, and they did not have a good experience being here.
Mm.
I saw a woman in my own extended family, and I was extending invitations for them to visit, like I've been extending to everybody to come visit us because I think it's so great here.
Mm-hmm.
But it occurred to me on the heels of this other conversation about somebody who had a not good experience here, that this woman in my family could, whether consciously or subconsciously, be read from an Australian as having Indigenous Australian or Aboriginal descent.
Mm. So she'd have an entirely different experience.
So she might have an even rougher experience than this other person who told me they had a rough experience.
Right.
Now, I know some of the history of that, and it's very similar to, it's funny because they are the Black people of this land.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
But they were treated more akin to Native Americans, but with a lot of similarity and some of the same disparaging language and tactics as African Americans in America.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I'm well aware of where I live. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that this is utopia. When I knew it was where I wanted to be, I didn't think, oh, this place is perfect. I get it.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I'm an African American studies major. I know how this thing works.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
it's that's true here, certainly. Historically, currently, I mean, there's problems between, the police and Indigenous Australian youth in the Northern Territory, I think specifically, which sounds very familiar.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all those things, but ultimately I feel like being here is safer.
Mm-hmm. No guns.
The
Yeah.
guns is huge.
Yeah.
There's a certain, just I don't know how to put it, but there's a certain vibe in America that feels dangerous to me.
Got it.
A lot of that is to do with racism,
Mm-hmm.
but like racism plus armed to the teeth is not a good
Yeah.
combination.
Right.
And I also feel like, I'll say this too for your audience in particular. When we hadn't yet come back here, but we were getting ready. I listened to this news broadcast once, and they were talking about they had horrible flooding here, the same area that's flooded right now today as I speak to you, up in Lismore, north of New South Wales. They were talking about the effects of climate change or whatever, and so the ABC, which is the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, news anchor or whatever, was interviewing this climate scientist, and they asked the scientist. They said, if I could move anywhere I wanted in Australia to be safe from the effects of climate change, where should I move? Like, if money was no object, where should I go? And the scientist dodged the question. And so
Mm-hmm.
the interviewer came back and said, "Okay, great, I hear you, but where should I go if I could go anywhere?"
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "You want to live in the place where you have the tightest knit community when
When it
the
goes down.
calamity happens,
Yep.
because the calamity is coming for us all. There's
Yes.
no place where
Right.
you will be safe, right?" And I was like, wow, okay, bet. Now, we have had great neighbors in every abode we have been in in this country.
Bless. Mm-hmm.
We've had great neighbors in the neighborhood where people think, "Oh, I don't like people from those neighborhoods." You know what I'm saying? We even had great neighbors there. Now, some of that may be luck. I haven't met. I said we just moved. We haven't met all the neighbors on our block here because we were trying to get settled and everything. I just met my next door neighbor like 2 days ago,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but we know the neighbor on the other side. So it's like I don't even know what question I'm answering now. It's just you got to be good to people around you.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Because
I
there's
hear
going to be
you.
a flood or a fire or an earthquake in California or whatever.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you got to
Yeah.
be on good terms with those people around you.
Yeah. I think that's a wonderful way to talk about a mindset hack.
Yeah,
So
it's just
so
care.
it's
You got to care.
yes, exactly. So what is your mindset hack? What do you do to, break down, break in,
I mean,
press
so
stop,
I
press
was telling
pause?
you, I was telling you before we hit record on this that I have
Hmm.
perpendicular to the desk where I'm sitting facing my computer. Perpendicular, I have a keyboard, a MIDI controller.
Yes.
And so I just plug it in, open the music app, and just play piano. I'm a hobbyist. I mean, I played piano as a kid. I quit to play
Uh-huh.
soccer,
Okay.
and I got back into music in a pretty serious way in undergrad at Stanford.
Okay. Wait, so
And so,
did you play with any of the groups?
no, well, I mean, I was in gospel choir.
Okay, yes, I remember that now.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I
Hmm.
sang in
Hmm.
gospel choir. So the first time I ever sang a note was at Stand Funk.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I didn't know I was a bass or a baritone at least.
Oh, really?
And I just happened to walk past the large lounge in Ooge when they were practicing or
Okay.
auditioning or
Or
whatever
doing
for Stand
auditions.
Funk. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I just started singing what Shannon was singing, and Shannon yelled out, "Wes can sing it," because I can't really hit that note, but Wes is hitting that note, and I was like, "Well, what?" And so I sang that song. It was by Shy.
Oh,
I think it's
do
called
da da
Yours.
do do
Yeah,
do.
so not that one.
Mhm.
Not
Oh,
that one.
okay,
It was
different one.
actually, is it Baby I'm Yours or Yours or something?
Oh, baby, I'm
I
yours.
think,
Yeah, uh-huh. It
yeah,
might
but
have
it
been that
wasn't
one.
that. It was an
Was
acapella
it?
track, but I can't think of the name now. Whatever.
Okay, okay, but it was a
And
Shy
I'm
song.
not about
Okay.
to get you to get me singing. So let's just keep it moving.
Ah, I was trying to.
Anyway, so it was that, and then I started doing gospel choir. But then I really, Jabari Anderson was the director of gospel choir when we came in as freshmen, and he had gone off to Morehouse with Jason Stevenson for one of those exchange programs, or like a semester or something.
Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
anyway,
Yep.
so I took over the directing of gospel choir when Jabari was gone. And so like Jabari, he said, yeah, he's like, Wes got the bug. Like the way that was the way he put it. He was
Oh,
like, he's like, Wes got the music bug. And like that bug doesn't let go. Like
it
when you get
doesn't
it, you
actually.
just stay with it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've never been in a band. I've never played jazz, which I usually like to say early on when I'm talking to people about J&D, just
Okay.
so people don't get the wrong impression of how I'm coming at this.
Got it.
I'm
Got it.
not coming at, I'm coming as a lover of the music and talking to people about the craft, not as a practitioner myself.
Mm-hmm.
But like, yeah, so I got the bug. And so, but I really started playing again during COVID.
Quiet
And
time.
so, yeah, well, it was just, we were stuck in the house and we had gotten
Mm-hmm.
this keyboard. It was actually the keyboard that we bought in Australia for my daughter to start taking piano lessons at school. We just shipped it back with us and we were
Mm-hmm.
living, and we had this great setup where we were looking out. So we had a view of the bay
Mm.
so I sat the keyboard in the window. And so we know West Coast, so I'm watching the sunset every night.
Nice.
And I would just turn the keyboard on. So I had just enough facility left from having taken, some foundational lessons as a kid to, thanks to the, wonders of YouTube. Just,
Right.
hey, that I really like this pop tune or whatever song, and it
Yeah.
sounds easy enough. Let me see if I can find a video where somebody shows me what notes to play. And
Okay.
so, yeah, so so like my repertoire is now is basically pop tunes, because like
Okay.
the very simple 4 chord songs, whatever. But
The
I just like them.
sing-alongs. Yeah,
Yeah,
you sing
but
along.
like that thing. Well, I'm not doing much singing. I'm just like doing the accompaniment. But it's just like the thing that I started to appreciate about music was that sound gives me a certain feeling. What is that sound? And it
Mm.
just has to do with harmony. Certain chords make you feel a certain way, and certain chord changes make you feel a certain way. And so I was just like, man, I love this song. What is that? Okay, let me go find a video that shows me how to play it, and I'll know what that is.
Mm.
So yeah,
Mhm.
but I'm definitely a hobbyist. I don't mind playing in front of people, but it feels very different. And I would not be. No one would pay or even tip to see me play. But I don't mind playing around people. But I'm just here at my keyboard, taking a mental break, doing some music, and then I turn 90 degrees and get back to work.
Nice. That's a great hack. I like it. I like it. Well, Wes, this has been such a good introduction and survey and so many things. Catch up. I love it. And so, what's new and next? You're still there. What's new and next? What's going on?
Well, we're definitely here for the long term, as far as I can tell. Like, as we've already discussed, like, the future is uncertain, but we are as permanently here as anything in life is permanent.
Okay.
So that's next. I'll be teaching this course at the Conservatorium of Music at the UCID next term. I got my Sex, Race, and Rock coming up in July, so I'm brushing that off again. But the
Yep.
thing is, too, and I need to say this like with full shamelessness, like I need to be doing J&D so much more than I'm able to right now. Like I've made some inroads in New Orleans recently,
Ooh.
which is great. Yeah, which is like I actually want to be in all of the historic jazz cities. So like
Ah,
I want J&D to have a presence. And by presence I mean teachers who I've trained using J&D in some way in their classrooms. So I want that in New Orleans, I want it in Kansas City, I want it in Chicago, I want it in New York. Although I think Lincoln Center's probably got New York covered, but their thing is different from my thing. But
the
Pittsburgh is
collaboration is key.
yeah, sure, yeah.
Collaboration is key. Yeah.
Pittsburgh is also an important jazz city. A lot of great jazz musicians came out of Pittsburgh.
Hmm. Hmm.
Obviously the Bay Area, there's a lot of great jazz education in Seattle. I've done presentations in Seattle.
Yeah.
Wherever people are interested in trying to get their students to think about their role in society, the importance of, being intentional about that role.
Yeah.
I mean, J&D has legs in so many directions. I mean, I did some presentations, like I did a presentation at Yahoo once. It's got a lot of implications for like just any type of teamwork,
Yes.
any type of leadership skills, any type of developing expertise. I have insights from jazz masters that really are, my whole thing about this is if you talk to a master of a craft about the nuances of that craft, there's a whole lot of universal insight in there. And I've got just a trove of just really thoughtful and insightful takes on dealing with life and how to approach it in my arsenal of material. So I'm looking forward to get that out there as much as possible, as far and wide. I'm happy to do presentations via Zoom. I, of course, want to be in the classroom doing it live and in person here in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing, like, I mean, I just got to say, like, I've done it so many ways with so many different types of audiences. I've been to 6 countries on 5 separate tours with the U.S. State Department.
Mm-hmm.
I've been
Mm-hmm.
in the hoods of multiple countries. I've been in the top classrooms, the top, socioeconomic status in multiple countries. It works in every scenario.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
important just life lessons, how to be a good person, how to develop a craft, how to
Mm-hmm.
have
Mm-hmm.
dedication. Like one of the things I talk about with musicians is I ask them for perseverance stories.
Mm-hmm.
Like because
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
order to develop, in order to be great, even good at any task, you have to be willing to do the things that you don't like about it.
Yeah.
Nobody gets great because only doing the part that they like. There's
Exactly.
some part of this, like teachers don't like grading papers, but you got to grade papers if you want to be a good teacher. Like, what are you talking about?
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, I just have all these musicians talking about the part of their craft that they hated. And some of it is like technical. Some of it is very personal.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I
Like
can't deal with
traumas.
this. What? I just feel like I can't deal with this type of person. Like, I asked Christian McBride this question. Christian McBride gave me 7 separate anecdotes
Oh, wow.
of like elder jazz musicians just kicking his butt. You know what I mean? Just hazing,
Yeah.
just straight hazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Betty Carter. Soon as he comes off stage, Betty Carter is saying like, "I know you don't think you played that, right?" Like, I hope you don't think you're any good. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
like
Let's be real.
Wynton's dad was famous for doing that
Yes.
to him after he won the Grammy. Like, you don't think this means you can play now, do you? Because you know what I mean? Like, some of that stuff it feels like hazing, but it's also kind of just like a part of a rigor that happens in the jazz community.
Right.
It's kind of done it can be done in a loving way. It sometimes doesn't feel that way, but it's kind of part of the tradition. So anyway, I'm just saying there's so many things that I want to do and can do with this program. I just need people to call me. I'm so willing.
Okay. Well, that's a great call to action for the show notes.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely
Hit
put
the
all the contact
website,
information
email
there
me.
and
I
all of
will get.
that.
I do not turn much down, and I don't turn down work, and I'm definitely got some openings.
Okay, I like it. So you've talked a lot about the business, and we've done the business plug. We kind of know who you are when you're not working, but very specifically, are you a reader, a watcher, or a listener? And what are some of your favorite reads, watches, or listens? Or what else do you do in your leisure time?
Okay, so I am sadly and embarrassingly, woefully underread. Like I do not read for pleasure. I've only ever read for school. So I'm not a reader. I've got a whole bunch of books that I should read, but I tend to only read when I'm prepping for class. I'm definitely a listener and a watcher, but I think for my purposes, obviously the listening is key.
Yes. Mhm.
The thing just in case there's any snowball's chance in hell that any of your listeners will know this person, there is a guy that I have been listening to nonstop since October 2023,
Okay.
and I cannot get enough of this dude. And I really want to be in touch with this guy.
Okay.
His name is Joseph Solomon.
Okay.
Apparently, he was pretty big in like I don't know this world at all, but like he was a pretty big like Christian influencer, and I don't really know what that even means. But he had some status, like as a YouTuber. I think he had a podcast and different types of stuff. He had a lot of followers on all the different social medias and whatever, doing gospel music of some kind, Christian. I don't know. I think he's from Atlanta. I don't know where he's from. He was in Atlanta. I think he moved to LA, but he has basically kind of denounced sorry, not denounced. He's renounced his kind of Christian belief system. So he's got a whole segment of content around that. I don't care about none of that. This dude's voice, man. I can't. This guy's voice is to die for. It is the quintessential, if you like a smoky, raspy kind of tone. He's a modern day crooner. Like, and I don't mean that in terms of style of song. It's R&B. It's definitely R&B soul, right?
Yes. Yes.
But like if you like the way Sam Cooke's voice sounds, I'm not saying he sounds like Sam Cooke. I'm saying this dude's voice is in that world.
Got it.
And he's got so I can't. It was just a YouTube algorithm. I was watching music with my daughter, which I try to do as often as possible. Been doing that since she was a baby, and it fed me. It fed me his cover of Bob Marley's "Turn Your Lights Down Low,"
Okay. All right. So
and
we'll
it's
look for
just
that one.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah. So that was the first thing I heard from this guy.
Yeah.
And no one, I was like, oh, this dude is macking so hard right now. Like, I was just like, this guy's voice is doing work on people. Like, I was just like, holy
Sure.
smoke.
Yeah.
So that was that. And then so he got a series of covers. And I was digging on those for a while on his YouTube channel. And then his originals are his specifically there's a song called New Religion, which is the first original I listened to, and it's
Okay.
very rare for me as a lover of music. Even still, it's very rare for to love a song on the first listen. Like on the
Mm.
very first listen, you're like, oh man, you know. Usually it takes a second for something like, oh, let me hear that again, which means something about it you like, but you're not all the way there yet. No, 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 no.
Right. Right. Right.
First time I streamed New Religion, I was like, okay, this guy's great. And here's another song called Black Like You, which is great. I love this dude. Like my wife and daughter are so sick of hearing Joseph Solomon.
Ah.
So like, I feel like with our general networks and
Yes.
hopefully the reach of your podcast, somebody's got to know this dude. I am telling you in no uncertain terms. I woke up one morning singing a song out of my dream,
Oh,
and I'm
wow.
like, this song is for Joseph Solomon.
Okay.
We got to do this song. I've written some songs. I got some stuff.
Ah.
I'm saying this is not about me trying to be rich and famous. I'm just saying it's so. Listen, I'm going to give you and your listeners the whole reason why I think this.
Okay.
So
Let's hear
I
it.
went to the Stanford Summit in New Orleans in March,
Okay.
and we were
Hmm.
talking about Black music. I might get emotional saying this, so forgive me if I have to take a second.
No
The
problem.
thing about Black music for me, as someone who studied it as an AFAM major and then someone who just really got into music, is that Black music, the tradition of it, a huge part of the tradition is quite literally saving lives.
Hmm.
Quite literally. So the very beginning of this is a very dark and ironic thing that I found out, which is
Hmm.
that during the Atlantic slave trade, they would allow banjos, which is an instrument that we brought over. You're welcome, country music. They would allow instruments below deck where they kept the enslaved Africans because more of them would survive the Atlantic journey if they could play music.
Yeah.
Now, that's the worst historical irony I've ever heard because of what they were headed into. Side note, there are no songs about the Middle Passage. There's no the most musical people on the planet, according to some captain's logs, that they've ever experienced were these West Africans who they took across the Atlantic and enslaved. There's no songs about that Middle Passage, but it was music that allowed some of them to survive it. Then you've got the tradition of the work songs and the Negro spirituals that were coded for escape.
Hmm.
That's saving lives. Just all the way through any church on any, all the way through up till this past Sunday, doing its work on people in church,
Hmm.
civil rights era, songs, music in the African American tradition saves lives. Okay.
Yeah.
So to me, this music is important in ways that like I will fight you. We can throw hands about this. This music means so much. So that's where I start. Then I glean from Joseph Solomon's YouTube presence that he struggles with depression, or maybe he has. But so then we're living in a time, especially post COVID, and also just I think we talked about the unpredictability of the planet, let alone the politics of this moment, and young people are having a hard time.
Yeah. Very.
I woke up with this song specifically to draw someone back from suicide. That
Mm.
was the lyric that was when I woke up. I was singing a melody, and it was specifically to draw some young person back from suicide. That's what the song is.
Saving lives.
She got saving lives. Look,
Yeah. Hmm.
why not now?
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
especially now. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, and it was Well, I came to find out when I started, like, I went to my keyboard and I like put the stuff in the, so I could like, don't lose this inspiration you have. I was like, oh, this is just part of the background music for the song New Religion, which I've listened to thousands of times. The jokes was, I was like, so I've just taken a piece of New Religion and it kind of, it's like a spinoff. It's not the
Got
melody
it.
though. So like, it's
Got
like
it.
the
Got it.
accompaniment is very similar to Joseph Solomon's New Religion, but it's like his voice with his experience of depression. I just think we got to make this song and we got to save some lives. So if anybody you're listening to or
You're
who's listening to
listening.
this
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
way to get to Joseph Solomon, I need to get to this dude. We need to make this song.
Well, I can give you a promise that I will tag him in when I distribute the episode, and we'll see what happens. I'm all
Yeah,
for
we'll
it.
see what happens.
Let's
I
save some
appreciate it.
lives. Let's save
Why
some
not,
lives.
man?
Yes.
We
Saving
gotta
lives.
care about people.
Yes.
We
That
gotta
part.
care about people, man.
Thank you, Wesley. This has been so wonderful. So I feel like that's a great last words. But do you have any last thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners before we sign off?
I think I want to come up with something else. Let me think here.
Okay. Yes.
I think people should partake in the people who were the absolute masters of their craft. So for me, I've been on some radio shows here recently in Sydney, and I've been trying to put on Black women in particular.
Thank you.
Like, if you don't know Rochelle Farrell,
Oh,
the singer,
yes.
like, you need to listen. Like, I mean, I don't know, man. I'm not so, Pollyannish to think like, music will save the world. I know it's a good motivator of people. It's a good uniter of people, but we need
Yeah.
some brass tacks political moves to happen. People are going to have to take to the streets probably. Like, I get that,
Yeah.
but I'm not good. I don't know nothing about that. Right.
All right.
Not really. I mean, I should arguably be in the streets and I should take some civil action, whatever, maybe. But what I know is music. And I feel like it matters to be around the masters of the craft or to soak in the masters of the craft. Rochelle Farrell is a one of one. If they ever, I said this the other day on Sydney Radio, if they ever do a tribute show to Rochelle Farrell, I don't know who the hell is going to sing. Because I don't know who can sing these songs like Rochelle Farrell. You can get Lettucey to sing Luther or Lettucey to sing Anita Baker, but like nobody's really doing Rochelle Farrell. They should call Lettucey though. Lettucey's got that New Orleans, Oakland thing too. So Lettucey, you need to get with Lettucey. You need to get with Michelle Ndegeocello, who is a completely different thing.
Yeah.
It's not about her vocals per se, although her vocals are.
Interpretation.
She has the richest whisper tone you've ever heard. Like, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Also, I didn't get this on the radio the other night. I am one of those people who will fight you for Bobby McFerrin.
Oh.
And I understand why specifically Black people do not listen to Bobby McFerrin. And the reason is because the one genre of music that Bobby McFerrin is weakest at is what you could broadly call soul music.
Yeah.
Like, that's not his bag. You know what I mean?
His daughter makes up for it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've seen her.
Yeah.
She's great. Madison, right? Is it Madison?
Yeah, Madison. Yeah.
And his son Taylor is not half bad either.
Okay.
But Bobby McFerrin, for me, is super important. He is arguably the greatest improviser of all time.
Oh my gosh, his instrument is phenomenal.
And I think he's a great improviser because he can improvise in so many styles. Again, the one he's just least good at is the one that Black people, give the most money to.
Yeah.
But Bobby McFerrin's father was one of the first Black people to do something. I forget if it was to perform at Carnegie Hall or Lincoln Center or something. His father was an opera singer.
Okay.
And I'm not saying Bobby McFerrin is like, an activist in any way, but I will say that to my mind, I think I've got this pretty accurate. Well, I won't say the only, I'll say one of the only. Bobby McFerrin may be one of the only Black musical innovators to never be copied. Like, okay. There's a part of jazz history with bebop where they were specifically trying to do some stuff that you couldn't get to. Culturally, you can't play this music like us, right? They were doing tempos and pyrotechnics that were difficult to play on purpose.
Yeah, right.
Bobby McFerrin, I'm not saying Bobby McFerrin had that mindset. He simply developed a technique and it's an almost wholly unique ability that no one else has even come close, I don't think, to actually mastering.
Yeah.
Now, you could just say no one's done it because it's, it's not popular. He's not a popular person. He's done, whatever. But so maybe that's why. But it matters to me that a Black musician, for all of the theft that has happened with our music, a Black musician developed a musical craft that no one has copied yet.
And that is masterful.
Because they cannot.
Right.
I mean, they could. And maybe no one's going to do it because it won't make any money. Like, he's been doing it. He'd make a lot of money doing the thing that makes him a genius. Or he's also a one of one. No one can do what he does. I know a couple people who can demonstrate little bits here and there, but his instrument is incredible.
Yeah.
So we've been going on long. I'll leave it at those few. But,
okay. All right. Well, those are great last words. And his father was, yes, the first African-American man to sing under contract at the Met.
At the Met. Okay. The Met. There you go.
Yeah, he was an opera singer. Yes.
Yeah.
You know your music.
I try.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I look forward to connecting. And wow, this has been a good conversation.
I'm glad. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right, Glocal citizens, thanks for joining us for this episode of the podcast. You can catch us Tuesdays with new episodes at glocalcitizenspod.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave us a review. We love to hear from you. Check out the show notes. They're going to be very, 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 very rich. And until next time, bye for now.